Welcome, my friends. I am so excited to have with me today Dennis Pate. He is the CEO and president of Omaha's Henry Dorley Zoo and Aquarium. Dennis, thank you for joining me today.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
125 years of our zoo here. And my goodness, has it gone through a transformation. So let's just start briefly. You arrived on the scene in 2009, but 125 years ago, let's just talk a little bit about what that was like to the best of your ability, which I know you've got a lot of information on that.
So yeah, think 1896 or so, Riverview Park. And the original concept behind Riverview Park was, I think early on, was to include some animals. Now it was very, it wasn't anything like a zoological park today, but the intent was that the park should have trees and be sort of an oasis in the midst of asphalt and city buildings. And of course, if it was a mini representation of nature, well, then it ought to have animals too. And so what would seem like crude exhibits by today's standards was an effort to express all that a park should be back then. And, it was under the auspices of the city for many, many years. And it wasn't until the mid 60s that the Zoological Society formed up and wanted to be able to fundraise and really enhance the zoo. And we took off from there.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about taking off from there, because what year was that about? In this?
Well, 1895 was when we started.
Sure, but in the 60s is when
then the Zoological Society came into being and started to assume some management responsibility and operating responsibility for the zoo.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about when they did come in, and that's when things started just to pick up speed a little bit. And again, so much has happened over the last few decades. I think especially potentially since 1990 is when, oh my gosh, things really exploded. But up until, let's talk maybe pre-1990, what was going on at the zoo?
Okay. So the entrance was in a very different place. It was a little farther north, basically kind of where the Red Barn used to be, that area right in there. Again, very different. It was managed by the city. We were just part of the city department.
Yeah.
And we had a live-in caretaker that was on the grounds who kind of oversaw at least the animal parts. I'm not sure whether he oversaw the entire care for the park as a whole or just the animal part, probably the park as a whole way back then. Yeah, it was a little oasis in the city. I don't think it aspired to be very much at the time, certainly not what it is today. And all those changes, they were iron bar, the sort of the classic old-fashioned idea of concrete or stacked rocks and iron bars and, lions and bears and, some of the very basic animals that you would see in the zoo at the time.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, I certainly remember as a child going to the zoo back when I remember the Red Barn. I remember the goats. And I remember quite a few things, but it definitely was a completely different experience as a little girl when I would visit it. So let's talk a little bit about just some of the highlights over that have happened. I do want to really dive into the zoo's mission and why it's important to us as a community and really globally. But let's just talk about some of the highlights over the years, and especially the years that you've been here. But you can start wherever you like on that.
Yeah, I'll start a little earlier than before I came, and I think the lead jungle really set the tone for what was possible here, what was possible in terms of creativity and vision, and importantly, what was possible in terms of funding that creativity and vision. And it was the first time that the zoo said to the community and philanthropic community that we can do something that's at that national or international scale. And that was the lead jungle.
Yeah.
That was soon followed by the aquarium, of course, and the desert dome and gorilla and some of the other things. But that, I think, was a major step toward us being looking in the future and saying to ourselves, and to the community, we can be so much more if you help us along the way.
Absolutely.
So,
And I'll just add too, I just remember with the lead jungle and just being, whatever, being a photographer and I mean, it's like every couple years, something big would be announced and then, released, and you'd have the membership drive. So it was it's been an exciting time ever since then, because everybody's like, what's next? What's next? So
we've gone from every few years to every year.
okay, well,
and so that's what the master plan did for us. We
yeah,
did a lot of things pretty rapid fashion and really changed the entire look of the zoo and feel of the zoo. When you think about the landscape that's been added in the last 12 or 13 years, it was a major commitment to turn, I often refer to the zoo as the park, almost going back in time, but so that when you walk through those gates, it feels very different. There's no mowed lawns and that sort of thing. It's a little more exotic looking and a very different surrounding. But since I've been here, I think the master plans were really what kicked it off and got everybody, the community, the staff, the board, looking forward about what was possible here. And then to get that completely funded out was pretty incredible. And there were some things that happened here even before the master plan. The aquarium renovation in 2011, the Oasis Grill, the new front gate to be able to allow us to efficiently process more people as they're headed into the zoo, the expansion of the parking lot. That was since I've been here, but pre-master plan.
Yeah.
You can add all that in as well. And I'm glad we did the front gate. I'm glad we did the parking. And it's because we could see what was coming, and we had a very good feeling that it was going to be extremely popular. So let's get the parking and the front gate, let's get that up to speed before we created a mess of people trying to get in to see elephants and giraffe and all the other things we presented since then. So we kind of took it chronologically as we saw it about just making it easier for people to come when we saw very much enhanced attendance here. Of course, then, elephants and giraffe and zebras and all the stuff in Africa, my God, that ended up being, a quarter of the zoo, the entire east side of the zoo. And it was probably the most transformational project that we did. And it really set the tone, the landscape tone. We were able to really extend out that whole east side, moving lions on top of the hill, and building very immersive animal exhibits with new wayfinding and new signage and donor recognition. It really set the stage for everything that was to follow.
Yeah. And so the Scott African grasslands, I'm looking at the timeline that we've got in the publication, but that was the largest project in zoo history in 2016, because you arrived on the scene in 2009, but
by more than double.
Yeah. And that was quite an event, I think, not just for the community, but got national, maybe international attention, bringing those elephants over, and just what a kind of feat that was. And when they got here, I mean, it was really a big celebration, and also kind of just a lot of us in awe, like, oh my gosh, you did what?
When we picked them up at the airport, there was a lot of hand wringing and anxiousness about all of this.
Sure.
Putting 17 elephants on a 747 and flying them from Africa to the US was quite something. But I was so taken by the reception we got. It was like a 4th of July parade between the airport and the zoo, with these big trucks with the crates on them. And we had a police escort, and we had signs on the bowling alley that said, welcome elephants.
Oh my God. Yeah.
We were all dead tired, but it was so nice to see that Omaha was embracing all of this.
Yeah. I mean, again, we were embracing it. And also you look at the people from around the country and also the world that come to the zoo, and just, again, it's just something that we're so proud of as a community. And I mean, like I said in my publisher's letter, I mean, I call this this is our zoo. This is my zoo, because it feels like a part of my family, to be honest with you. So
I think that ownership is really important.
Yeah.
We manage it on your behalf, but that ownership is very, very important, because probably our best marketing tool when we tried to spread the word is everybody in the community
Yep.
saying, you got to come to Omaha and see our zoo.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's wonderful to hear that and very gratifying.
So I know, let's talk about the mission. Let's get into the mission a little bit. And again, what the zoo does from a research standpoint, from a conservation standpoint. I mean, it's making a difference in countries and animals all over the world. So let's talk a little bit about that.
You know, Andy, there's three parts to the mission. One part's inspire, one part is educate, and one part is engage. And that sort of speaks to the most important things that we do. You know, the inspire part is when you walk through those gates and you see these incredible exhibits and this diversity of animals, these immersive exhibits. Sea lion is a good example. You are in the Pacific Northwest when you walk through that exhibit, and having the context around the animals means a lot. Asian highlands, very immersive exhibit. And so that has been our calling card. And so that's the part, you know, that's the hook. That's the part, that inspire part, that makes them come back. And every time they come back, they peel back another layer about what they want to know and what they want to learn about. And so then the education part, of course, is there's formal and informal. Formal parts of the high school we have here, the pre-K we have here, the kindergarten we have here, the after-school programs that we host, all of that. And then there's the on-grounds, the more informal, what the keepers talk about, what the signs say, what our docents do to help people learn more about the animals, what the day camps achieve, you know, all of those sorts of things make for a very robust education department. So we have the setting, we have the animals, we have the exhibits. Now let's use education to make the most of those things.
Yeah.
And then finally, the engage part. You know, and that's kind of two parts, I think. One part is habits that you may change at home, whether, you know, maybe because of what you saw at the zoo, maybe you'd opt for a hybrid vehicle a little sooner than you otherwise would have, or maybe you'll take that extra step to recycle a little better, or maybe you'll take public transportation or ride a bicycle. And boy, is that easy now with electric bikes. I have one.
Yeah.
And so part of it is, you know, what you can do yourself. And then part of it is what we're doing on your behalf, the engage part. And so, you know, our scientists and veterinarians and curators are fully engaged in making a difference for wildlife outside our perimeter fence. So those are the three basic components of the mission. And, you know, it's inspire, educate, engage, to really be stewards for animals and where they live.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about Madagascar, because you know, you do things all over the world. For some reason, that's just sticking in my head about kind of what, you know, you've got the whole Madagascar region at the zoo, but things are happening actually in the country itself.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear it's in your head, because it's our biggest program that we have conservation wise, and it's, you know, won multiple awards, and we have a sizable PhD scientific staff associated with that. And you know, I think it started out with the director of that program, Dr. Ed Lewis, and his interest in some of the turtles that live in Madagascar. And once he got over there, saw the need that was much, much broader than that, especially for primates, you know, in lemurs, Fusa, and some of the other animals that live there. He began to expand his view. That morphed yet again into, you know, have some of these natural areas were near small villages and things, and he wanted to engage the villagers a little more so that they understood what they had and what he was doing, so he could bring them along with them and what he was doing and learn from them at the same time.
Yeah.
And so the education part became more important in country. And then finally, what we're doing now is he's actually growing the forest that these animals live in.
Wow.
So a lot of the forests have been chopped down. And so lemurs that were, you know, extending along a 20-mile long mountain range, now it's little 2-mile pieces, and then all the trees are gone, then a 3-mile piece, and then the trees are gone.
Yeah.
Just to make that one continuous habitat. So, I mean, it's unbelievable, but he and the help of a lot of the local people that live there have planted now over 4 million trees. And we're working with another Nebraska organization to help that. And that's the Arbor Day Foundation, who funds a lot of that work, that tree planting. So he plants native trees, but on the lower slopes near the villages, he plants nut trees and fruit trees and other things that the villagers themselves can use. So it's, and they get paid. And so they get to make a little bit of a living. They get to restore some of the habitat and plant some trees that they're going to use as well. So it just works on so many levels.
Yeah.
In Madagascar. And, then the whole science part is he's named like over 20 species of lemurs through all the genetic work that he's done to try and sort them out. The first thing is to count all the pieces. He's done a very good job with that. And now that's, again, graded into, I've counted most, but not all of the pieces. Now, what do I need to do to make sure that they are here 50 years from now? And that's the phase we're in now.
And I just have to tell, it almost like brings tears to my eyes, because I think it's so amazing that we're changing the country, we're changing, the lives of the people there, but we're changing thousands or hundreds of thousands, or I don't know, possibly millions of animals and their quality of life. Which
we're doing one of the most basic thing, and that's providing homes for them, for the populations to grow. And I have been there. I went there about 12 years ago, not long after I started, so I can fully understand this big, huge commitment. And I have such an appreciation for what those scientists do over there. And it's a very poor country, and they don't have a lot of resources to spend like we might on national parks and all of that. So the work that Dr. Lewis and his team makes it even more important.
Yeah. So anything else you want to, any other global aspects you want to dive into?
Conservation is made up of a couple of different things. There's field conservation, the work that Dr. Lewis is doing, but there's other types of conservation as well. It's some of the recycling things we've talked about earlier, but it's also some of the things, how can we make sure that the role of zoos is keeping pace with the needs for wildlife. So it's way more than just a really neat Saturday afternoon visit.
Sure.
Now we start to add in another type of conservation is how do we make sure that we have elephants and rhinos and giraffe and lions 50 or 100 years from now?
Yeah.
So it's helping support the wild and helping support the educational initiatives, because the animals make all that possible. But also helping to make sure that things like tigers are still, at least in zoos, as the backup 100 years from now. And so some of our reproductive sciences department works very intently on that. And that's everything from doing monitoring hormones on elephants so that we can be better prepared for pregnancies and births, to finding out if our animals are cycling or not, and whether we need to make some changes based on that, to trying to use some assisted reproduction techniques for animals that for one reason or another are a little too old, they don't have all the right behaviors, it's too hard to move an elephant. How can we develop those techniques to supplement natural breeding as well? And so we've really strengthened that department quite a bit. We have 3 PhD scientists in that department alone right now. And so those are all the different components that make up that whole conservation side of what we do.
And this is a little sidebar. Our zoo, the Henry Dorley Zoo and Aquarium, is it a model for other zoos around the world? We're so spectacular, and sometimes zoos, I don't know if they're run as well. They're probably not run as well as ours. And are we kind of like this, to me, are we an inspiration or a model for other zoos?
I think so. I would, rather than say an inspiration or model, I'd say I think we're one of the leaders in the zoo world.
Sure.
Because we've been very progressive in our education endeavors, as I just talked about. Not many zoos have the number of scientists that we have. There's just a very few.
Why do we have so many scientists? Sorry to interrupt, but
because it's always just been a strong part of the mission. A lot of zoos give money to conservation.
Sure.
We do it here and give money.
Yeah.
Or, in areas that we don't have scientific expertise, then we try and facilitate that from, somewhere
Yeah,
else. So I think we're a leader in all of that. And
absolutely.
we've gotten awards on the Inspire side, some of the exhibits we've done. We've certainly gotten awards on the conservation side and absolutely on the education side. So across all three of those mission areas, we do really well. We have a lot of people that come visit us. To
How
see,
many? How many people?
we probably get, well, I mean, from other zoos, from professionals like me, we probably get 3 or 4 zoos a year that come, bring their boards, bring their senior staff, sometimes multiple times in a year.
Yeah,
Will want to come and see what we're doing and learn about, what's the magic sauce here in Omaha, Nebraska, because we so are way bigger than you would expect from a city our size.
yeah,
And they want to know what the elixir is. And it's nothing overnight, believe me. It's a steady stream of leadership between my predecessor and I to be able to make plans and follow through up them, to build relationships in the philanthropic community. You don't do those in 2 or 3 years, then you change out to another person. That
yeah,
takes some time. So, that's part of the magic. And part of the magic is just having a vision for what the zoo could be. And that's the fun part. That's the fun part for me, is thinking,
right.
trying to stay ahead all the time. And other zoos recognize that and they want to come see us. And I'm not
Yeah,
talking about just US zoos. I'm talking about zoos in Europe, and
yeah,
they like coming here because they can get a condensed version of the latest, greatest in one place that would otherwise take them 3 or 4 or 5 zoos to be able to try and piece it all together.
wow. Gosh, I love it. I just think that's so great. All right, I'm going to put you on the spot for a minute. And can you tell me and the viewers, what's your favorite exhibit
Oh, no.
besides all of them? But do you have a favorite exhibit, and follow it up by a favorite animal?
Favorite exhibit. But it inevitably is the last one we did because
Sure.
it's the most progressive. We've given it a lot more thought. We've learned from exhibits we've done in the past, and we set new examples for the entire zoo world. So it usually is the last one we've done. In our
Okay.
case here now, it is the Owen sea lion exhibit,
Yeah,
which I just love, and I think our guests love it too. I think they come there not sure what to expect, except they may expect something at a pretty high level, and they have really, really enjoyed the Owen sea lion pool. So that would have to be my favorite exhibit right now.
yeah,
I think, but the aquarium is up there too. I mean, here we are, we couldn't be farther from a body of water like an ocean, and yet people get to see fish underwater, and it's just an incredible
yeah,
learning experience there.
it is.
And as you've heard me say before, it's the largest aquarium in a zoo anywhere in the United States. There are separate aquariums bigger, but none in a zoo. And so it's really quite a bargain.
Yeah,
See that. In terms of animals, boy, you're really pressing me now, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a different answer there too. It's usually the latest animal I'm learning about. So when we were redoing the aquarium, I was fascinated by the aquarium fish and their life cycles and husbandry and how we keep water clean so that they're cared for. Fascinated with that. When we built Asia, boy, I couldn't get enough information about an animal that most people never heard of, and that's the Himalayan takin. I didn't know much about them, but now I have stamps and all kinds of things.
what kind of animal is it?
It's like an antelope species, kind of
Okay.
a cross, but think a bison, but not quite. It's a little different, or a Rocky Mountain goat, kind of a cross between a goat and an antelope. But males are 800 pounds or 900 pounds. They do well in the winters here. And so I just love the takin, and I was really interested in learning more about them.
Yeah.
So it really kind of, it varies a little bit. I love Indian rhinos. Now that's not they're right there with the takin. I've read some books on them, and some of it's really related to honestly what I've seen in the wild.
Yeah.
I would love to go see takin, but I haven't been able to get there yet in Bhutan. But I have seen Indian rhinos in both Nepal and India. And so that draws me closer to wanting to know more about them and kind of like them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I could talk to you for, I don't know, another hour, but we are getting down to the end of our interview. So let's talk quickly. How can people, before we go that, because I want to talk about how people can support, but what's next for the zoo?
Well, we're doing a couple of more modest projects right now, more people projects. The Desert Dome Plaza, that was the last remaining piece of our whole pathway system that really needed an upgrade. You know, so more shade, more trees, just general enhancements to that whole area. And I think they're going to like it when they walk through there about what we've done. And that'll be done here in just a few weeks.
Okay.
Memorial Day weekend. We'll still have some roof work to do. You know, it's been so windy, we haven't been able to work up there as much. And then the other project is enhancing the splash ground by moving the carousel. So we've done really nice job on the carousel. We've added more amenities to the splash ground. So it's unique to be able to do projects and then several years later think, how can we make this better? Or what has the public taught us about what we did well or not so well?
Yeah.
And then make those changes again. So I think they're going to like what we did down there too. And that'll again be done by Memorial Day. So they can look forward to both those projects.
Great. And then let's just talk, how can people support the zoo?
You know, there's an adage we've been using here is that if you come to the zoo, you're going to help save animals. That's the easy way. You know, every time you buy a membership or a portion of that ticket goes to inspire, educate, and engage.
Yeah.
And that's how we fund ourselves. And so, so that's one way to support it. Of course, there's philanthropic means. You know, we have fish in the aquarium for people that don't have multi-millions. You know, it's $150 or $200. And we have giraffe and elephants, little things that
you can sponsor.
Nice, yeah. They give people a little bit more ownership.
Yep.
Place at whatever income level you're at, whatever you can afford to give. We appreciate it all. You know, participating in day camps, you know, anyway, you know, buying a Coke or a hot dog, all that stuff.
Sure.
All that helps us. Participating in Zufari or some of the other fundraisers we have. Lots of different ways.
Well, I know there's so much great information on your website as well. And wow, again, I'm so proud to be able to call this zoo, you know, my own. And, you know, again, we could talk honestly, probably for hours about the zoo. I will mention that we've got a great story. When I read this, you know, for the first time, I mean, you know, I know about the zoo, but I just was in awe. I mean, and
it's nice to have it all in one place.
Yeah, it's just amazing. And so, I mean, thank you for everything you have done during, you know, to continue just to keep I don't know, just thank you for everything that you do and everybody at the zoo continues to do. So.
Well, we appreciate the attention you've given us through the magazine, and
absolutely.
Next generation will have a basis for loving us like the current one does.
Yeah. And we'll just encourage people also. I think the most recent excitement are the baby elephants. So I still need to get over there and take a look at them. That's just oh my gosh, there's nothing like a baby elephant.
Two baby elephants.
Two baby elephants.
Trust me, it's not to be missed. It's so heartwarming to watch them, and you'll see some advertising coming out from us by Memorial Day weekend that I just took a first look at. That's just fantastic.
Awesome.
So come see.
All right, Dennis, thank you so much for your time. It's so good to see you, and encourage everybody to get out to Omaha's Henry Dorley Zoo and Aquarium.
Thank you.